Good morning. You listen to the Blaine's World Show, heard each Wednesday here on the new WPVM in Asheville, North Carolina. You can also listen online at WPVM.org and watch us on WPVM's Facebook page. I'm your host, Blaine Greenfield, and we're here in my Zoom studio in lovely Fairview, North Carolina. And each week we focus on the Asheville theater scene, as well as on positive news and information about people and organizations in Western North Carolina and throughout the country. And to that end, it's my pleasure to introduce my first guest, and she is Maria Buchanan. Welcome aboard, Maria.
Thanks, Blaine.
Okay, Maria, first of all, you can also wave to all your fans and friends in Facebook world. Okay, so if anybody's watching, they can see Maria. And I should mention that Maria's quite a person, as you'll see. I know her through her work as a professional actor, but she's also a soap and candle maker in the Asheville area. She's performing with theaters across the Southeast for over 10 years and is making handmade cold processed soaps and soy candles for half that time. She currently resides in Asheville with her husband, Russell Thompson, and a joy-filled 3-year-old. And will I get to meet 3-year-old today or not today?
Alden, he's occupied. He's with my husband right now with his dad. So hopefully.
Okay, but I have had the pleasure of meeting him a couple times, and it's really cool.
He's everything you think a 3-year-old would be.
Okay, so Maria, I guess I first met you at a play at NC Stage, or it could have been at Flat Rock. And the question I always ask that, in terms of how people get into acting, when did you start acting?
Oh, I got into acting in middle school. I don't know why. There was a drama club at my school, and so I decided that I wanted to join, and auditioned for some plays in that, and did some scenes, and we would stay after school and do scenes with each other and have little performances. And then I auditioned for some shows at the local community theater and loved that, and then just got really into it and loved seeing plays. I first saw my first professional play at Barter Theater in Virginia, which was about an hour from where I grew up, and was just spellbound. I saw Godspell there, and could not wait to get on that stage and do something like that myself.
Have you performed at Barter?
I've not. Nope. I've got several friends that are up there, but I've never made it up there.
Now, the question back to your career when it began, do you remember the first play you were in?
I was in a play called Where the Lilies Bloom at Johnson City Community Theater.
Because I have this idea, Maria, I don't know if I've ever shared it with you, but this could be a fundraiser, for example, for North Carolina Stage, and that everybody would do their first role. Like your first role, you mentioned that you remember it. Is there a taped version of it?
Probably somewhere. God, I don't know if I want to see it.
No, but wouldn't that be cool that everybody could see, your first?
Yes, I would love to see. There are people I would love to see that from.
You wouldn't have to see the whole show. You could just see maybe a little bit. But you can imagine
me standing up and saying my one line in the play and sitting back down.
Is that what you had, one line?
1 or 2 lines, yeah.
Oh, but wouldn't that be cool? Or even when little kids are 5 years old and they're a tree or something, But I just think that'd be a really a lot of fun, that everybody you could see it and you could pass it on to your son, Do you see your son being an actor?
I hope not. No.
Why is that?
No, he's oh my God. Well, here we are with no work on the horizon. So,
well, okay.
That's not unusual for an actor. No, he's very musically inclined. He's very artistic child. So I suspect his father is a musician as well. So he's got some artistic genes that are in there. So we'll see what he does. He's also very interested in vacuums. So who knows?
Remember when they used to have vacuum cleaner salesmen, so.
Oh, that's his thing. So he may, be a vacuum engineer or something.
When did you decide you wanted to become a professional actor?
I had some really not great experience in theater before I took my equity card, which is when an actor joins the union. That's what we say. You take your card, and realized that I wanted more on the business end of things, if you will, than I was getting. I worked with a director who was really sort of rough and abusive with the cast, and watched him really do some damage to some people during the show that I was in. And there was no recourse. There was no way to do anything about that. This was a non-union show. We were working really crazy hours. We were, it was not a great situation. And I was right on the verge of determining whether or not I wanted to take my equity card, because that means a few different things. It means you can't do non-professional theater. So it would eliminate a lot of the work that I was getting. But that really cemented the decision for me of taking my card and joining the union and joining this network of theaters that were committed to providing a professional experience for the audience, but also for the actors, and taking care of the people that work for them and providing good pay and benefits and working conditions. And that's what the union does, and that is a large reason of why I'm part of it.
You remember your first equity show?
Yeah, it was A Christmas Carol at Flat Rock in 2014. Yep. Okay. Yeah, that was my first one.
And I guess I've seen you, I don't know if I've seen you at Flat Rock, but I've seen you in a bunch of things at NC Stage in particular. That's sort of like almost your home theater, I guess, when you...
It's about half a mile from where I'm sitting right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Do you walk it or drive it?
I walk all the time.
You really?
Yeah.
Well, talk about, and I actually think it might have been the first thing I saw you in, or one of the first things, was that one-woman show. It just, and I have to tell you another story about one-woman shows. I typically don't love one person or one woman or one man shows, but again, we were talking about Charlie, what is it, Flynn McGeever? And he taught me about this. He said, no, you don't love one-woman shows or one-man shows. You don't love bad one-woman shows or one
right, exactly,
shows.
Yes. And there are plenty of them.
Right, but he really changed my thinking, and you did too, thank you. The one-woman show I saw you in just knocked my socks off. You want to just mention that show?
Thank you so much. Yeah, so I guess that was the 12 Dates of Christmas,
right.
which was
I love that.
Stage.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was my first one-person show.
Yeah.
So I was really nervous to do it because, like you, I had seen some
real
rough ones, and but I had also seen some really incredible ones and had been inspired by people seeing them. I had seen Willie Repoley do an Iliad at NC Stage, which was one of the most phenomenal things I've seen, here. And I'd seen people do it well, and I wanted to do that too.
Well, I always thought the advantage of the one-woman show is that if you blow a line, nobody knows except for your director.
Oh my God, yeah. But boy, there's nobody to help you get out of it either. If you forget it, you're just there on your own.
Yeah. Now that show, I saw it, I think the first time it came out. Did you do it again?
So yeah, it was done at the theater 3 times.
Right.
The first time was several years ago, and Julia Vanderveen, who's a wonderful actor who used to live in the area, did it. And then I did the show in 2017, which was the year that my son was born. So I did the show with a 4-month-old.
Okay.
And then I did it again the next year.
We were talking off the air. I could see that eventually being a Zoom type production,
Sure, yeah.
With that I could see, and we'll talk about the show you're in the second half of today, that I could see also being done as performance, so people could see it any time. But, I just love that. It's just so, it wasn't, I guess, about you, but it felt like it could have been you, or that's you as an actor.
Well, you always try and find something in the character that you play to relate to. And sometimes that's harder than others. And with this one, the character is pretty similar to me in a lot of ways. So it makes it fun to find all those connections. And of course, you're playing 14 or 15 different characters and, voicing them all and finding new physicality for them all and finding new traits. And that's the fun thing is you're not just playing one person, you're playing all of the characters in somebody's life, which is a fun experience.
And for the benefit of people who have no idea what we're talking about, can you give maybe just the Reader's Digest version of what that show is about?
Yeah, sure. The 12 Dates of Christmas is it's a play by Gina Hoppen, and it follows Mary Connell, who lives in New York City, and it's Thanksgiving, and she's sick and can't go home to. I'm sorry, no, she has gone home to her family for Thanksgiving. Her fiance is sick and has not been able to join her. So she's watching the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, which is a tradition for her, and loves it. She's surrounded by her family. It's Christmas time. She's engaged to this wonderful guy. She's so excited, and she's watching the parade. And the camera pans to the crowd and shows this man kissing this woman. They're just filled with the Christmas spirit, and it turns out that it's her fiance kissing another woman. So that begins her year of sort of finding herself and figuring out where she is in life and what she wants and what it means to have lost this thing that she thought was so secure, and really finding herself and coming around at the end. The show goes through an entire year of bad dates, really, and of all these people that she meets along the way, and her relatives who are constantly trying to set her up with somebody or to check on her and make sure she's doing okay. And then she comes around at the end to Thanksgiving and to Christmas again, and has a run-in with the fiance again, and bombs it, and then really gives it to him, and comes around in the end to find herself and be really secure in who she is, knowing that she doesn't need this certain type of life or this certain picture to feel like her life has meaning or completion. It's really sweet. It's very funny. It's silly, but it's also got some really heartwarming moments in it.
And talking about heartwarming, listening to you is making me almost teary. Saying I want to see the show again. I said I'd love to have a version of it again because it was so good and you were so good in it.
Oh, thank you so much.
But I was just wondering, how this one person, to have 12 characters. You said that was the first time you ever did a one-woman show?
That was the first time I did a one-woman show, yeah. Not the first time I played multiple characters in a play. In fact, Wonderful Life, I do a 4-person version of Wonderful Life with Immediate Theater Project, which is another theater company in town. And you end up playing many, many roles in that. But yeah, the first time doing it in that particular situation where it's just you on stage.
Do you have a preference? Would you rather be just yourself on stage or working with other actors?
I love working with other people on stage. There are some things that I really liked about, having the whole stage to myself. I tell people you get to play the characters like you want somebody else to play them. But there's nothing compares to being on stage with somebody else and making a connection as an actor, but also as characters, and feeling that sort of magic in the moment. You get that with the audience in a one-person show, but it's not the same thing, and beyond that, just backstage, you're by yourself. And I'm one of the people who likes to sort of talk when she's getting ready for a play. So
there wasn't an intermission in that one?
There was not. No, right, it was exactly. An hour and a half straight through. Yep.
And then I've also seen you, again, if you're in a show, I'm going to want to see it. I've also saw you in 2 of the 3 Jeeves shows. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. Or 2 of the, I guess, 4 or 5 it ended up being, right? At
NC Stage. How do you enjoy being in those?
I love those. Yeah, they're so much fun. I love PG Woodhouse. Angie Flynn McKeever is always the director of those, and that's a joy for her, and it's a joy to work with her always. And good people in those shows.
It's just it's just they were pure fun. But then I'm trying to think what else I've seen you in. I think you told me you were in Brave New World.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah, and I saw that. That was interesting. That was the first time the show had ever been done, or one of the first times?
Yeah, it was a premiere of that show, yeah.
Yeah. What was your reaction being in that?
It was wild. It was as far as I know, the only big musical like that that's been done at North Carolina
State. NC State, yeah.
So it was a very big undertaking. It was very technically difficult. It was, we had a full band that was backstage in one of the dressing rooms that we only heard through the speakers. They were on a monitor for us. The conductor was on a monitor. It was, there was a lot that could potentially go wrong. Unfortunately, we ran into a lot of that during tech for the show, which is exactly when that was happening. So there were some big challenges in that respect, but the show itself was really neat. It was very different. I think people seemed to really enjoy it. It was a lot of spectacle, a lot of sort of stylized staging and lights, and working with a new show is interesting because there are always changes that you're getting. So throughout rehearsal, we would constantly be getting updates and rewrites to the script that we would have to learn right there, and redo choreography or relearn a scene or change lyrics to the song. And when you're only rehearsing for 3 weeks, it's that's a lot that goes into it. So it was a challenge, but it was
I've always
fun.
wondered, is that tough to do? To learn something and then have to learn it?
Yeah, I mean, I do pretty well with memorization. So that's not part of it. But whenever you are, especially learning songs with dance, your body recognizes, oh, when I'm doing this move, I'm singing these lyrics, and has that muscle memory. So it can be hard to retrain your body to learn it with different lyrics or learn it with learn new choreography. But we do it. That's what we do. That's our job. So
Do you know if that, do you know if that show had legs? Was it ever done
it
again?
went on. There was a reading in New York with a different cast, and beyond that, I don't know. The reading in New York had somebody from American Idol that was cast as the lead. I can't remember his name, but they took it up there to move on sort of to the next step of taking it somewhere else, performing it in this city, and then I'm not sure. I don't know. So I followed it and got to that point, and then I don't know. And then things like that take a lot of time.
Right.
Yeah, there's there are rights issues that you have to work through. There's casting. There's production team changes or drama in there, I guess, that you're working through. And then here we are with the pandemic. So I don't know what had been planned. I don't know if this changed anything that had been planned, but I know that there was a potential for it to do something or to move somewhere else. So we'll see.
That's kind of a perfect segue to trying something different or moving somewhere else. Because then I was amazed to find out about you, that I had known you as an actor and sing in several plays. Then all of a sudden, I hear that you now are a soap maker or a candle maker.
Yeah.
Are you a baker also?
I am a baker. I am.
Well, we can sell your products at NC Stage, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
That's right.
How'd you get into soap making?
I've always been a crafty person. I come from a family of makers. My father is a chair maker. As a trade, as a profession, he's very established and sort of renowned for that, fine woodworking. And so I've always had someone in my life who's making something. My family's also I come from generations of cooks. And so working with my hands or crafting or, just creating things for yourself or for other people has always been part of my life. And so I've always loved paper crafts. I've loved, I've dabbled in lace making and blacksmithing and paper making and, French cooking, anything that I can. And
wait, so I can bring my horse to you?
Yeah.
Is that it?
I'll shove your horse.
Okay.
So for Christmas and things like that, I've always looked for things that I can make for other people. And one year I thought I want to make soap. And so I looked into it. This was 5 or 6 years ago. I looked into it and, wanted to do it from the ground up. So I wanted to start with the fats and the lye and liquid and mix them together and make real soap. And so I did. And it was fun. I liked it. And so I kept doing it. And then when the pandemic struck, I thought, well, I've been doing this for a while. I enjoy it. People seem to like my soap. So I'll see if if people want to buy it from me.
Where do you make your soaps?
In my kitchen.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah.
So it's a whole production?
It's a whole, shut down the kitchen, get the heavy chemicals out, and then make this really luxurious, wonderful, bubbly bar that you can wash your face with. It's wild what goes into it.
Do you get your husband to help out too?
No, he doesn't help. He keeps the toddler and the dog out of the way.
Well, that's a big help.
Yeah, he supports me in all of those ways.
Well, so when you make soap, I don't know if I've ever spoken to a soap person before. Mm-hmm. Like, how many bars of soap can you make at a time?
Well, it depends. It depends on the size batches that you are able to make. Larger companies that make the type of soap that I make, which is called cold processed soap, can make hundreds of bars at a time. They have very large molds. They have the capacity to blend together really large batches. I make a batch of the biggest batch that I make is about 18 bars at a time. So I do 2 long molds. That takes about 100 ounces of a mixture of oils and butters and lye, sodium hydroxide, and some sort of liquid. So that could be coconut milk or water or beer. or milk, cream, anything like that, depending on the type of soap that you're making. And you mix them together and in the quantities that you want, depending on what each oil or butter brings to the soap. Some are more bubbly, some are more creamy, some are more cleansing. And you blend them together, bring them to an emulsion, add any colors or fragrances that you like, and pour it. And you can pour them in really decorative patterns. You can pour them really simply, and then cut them. And then with cold processed soap, the bars require 4 to 6 weeks to cure. So the water evaporates out of the bar and the bar gets really nice and hard and will become a long lasting bar of soap. If you used it immediately, it would disintegrate really quickly in the shower. You'd have a few days or a week out of it and then it would be gone. But
So-
with that cure time, you get a month or two.
So where do you put the soap when it's curing?
All over my house.
Is it really? Oh, the house smells nice though, right?
It smells so great. I've taken over every possible space that I can, of shelves and, you know, up in the tops of closets, of shelves, and it has to cure in the air. The air has to reach it so that it can cure properly.
Well, when you make the 12, you said you make 12 bars at a time, or how many?
18 bars at a time.
18 bars. So how long does that take you?
Depending on the recipe that I'm using, depending on the design that I'm making, anywhere from about an hour and a half to 3 hours, or even several days if I'm doing really complicated layers to actually make it. And then it takes time to unmold the soap, to cut it. You have to clean up the edges. When you cut it, it makes the edges really kind of rough and not pretty. So I bevel them off. It might require washing of the soap. The soap can develop something called soda ash on the top, and it can be kind of an unsightly thing. So you wash it off, and then I package them. I wrap each soap in handmade paper and label it. And so all that, all that takes time.
And so the name of the soap is what?
So I'm the Sudsery Soap Studio. And it's as of last year, I'm the Sudsery Soap Studio. And I'm on Instagram at the Sudsery Soap Studio, and I have a website, thesudserysoapstudio.com. You can email me at thesudserysoapstudio@gmail.com.
Okay, so people can order this, and then you'll ship to them, or you'll meet them to
I
pick it up?
ship, I deliver. I've been really overwhelmed with holiday orders, so right now my stock is really low, which is a great thing for me and less good for people who are looking for Christmas gifts. But I do something. One of my favorite things that I do is called the Sudsery Soap subscription, and it's 6 months of soap. I bring you or mail to you 2 bars of handmade cold processed soap, all wrapped beautifully, and an extra little sample every month for 6 months. And it's so much fun. It's maker's choice. So you sign up and I just bring you what I've decided to make. So it allows me to be really creative. It allows me to try new designs or try a new fragrance oil that I've been wanting to, and allow somebody else to get a lot of handmade soap for a discount over the course of the 6 months. So it's less than if you would buy each of those individual bars.
Talk about, Maria, the difference between your soap and store-bought soap.
Yeah, sure. So handmade soap, cold processed soap, or another handmade soap called hot processed soap, they both are soap in the traditional sense. So when people say, well, my great grandmother used old lye soap, that's what I'm making. But I'm making it hopefully a lot more gentle than the soap that your great grandmother used. But that's what it is. It's fats and it's sodium hydroxide, and they are emulsified together. And through the chemical process known as saponification, they form soap. So that is the only thing that's in your soap. The soap that I'm making has mostly olive oil, coconut oil. I use shea butter, cocoa butter, sometimes mango butter, avocado oil, sodium hydroxide, and a liquid. And that fragrance oil or essential oils, if I'm using those, and that's it. Soap that you'll buy commercially has lots of, it's the difference in like natural food versus processed food, really.
Exactly.
In a sense, yeah. It's ingredients that that you can pronounce, that you can see. They're simple. There are a few of them. If you look at the bar, bar of soap on the store shelf, you're going to see lots of things you can't pronounce. For one, you're going to see a lot of chemicals that are there to harden the bar, to make the lather, bulk up the lather, lots of detergents, which are going to dry out your skin and suck away the moisture from your skin. Cold processed soap has the natural byproduct of glycerin. When that saponification process happens, it forms soap, but it also forms glycerin, which is wonderful for your skin, and it actually helps to attract moisture to the surface of your skin and keep you nice and moisturized. So it's a gentle bar, whereas a commercial bar of soap can strip the oils from your skin and be really dry and harsh and cleansing.
Well, it's good too. It's like a man's hair club. You know, I couldn't be a spokesperson for that. You could be the spokesperson for the soap. You know, that I
That's
assume
right,
you use your own soap. How did you learn how to make it?
You know, there are lots of great resources online, as there are for everything these days, and lots of books. So I started following some soap makers on Instagram, and ones that I liked what they were doing. I liked their designs. I liked what their products were and what they stood for. I like soap makers that try and use all natural products. I like ones that try and wrap in environmentally friendly ways. And, you know, I like a certain design style. So I started following them, and then I looked at books that they've written. I would love to take some classes that they've had, but I've not done that. You know, you can find all kinds of resources. And so I found the ones that seemed the best and the most informed, because you can also find really bad ones. And started kind of paring it down and formulating my own recipes and making what I make today. So looking for a bar that's really moisturizing, but also really durable, that smells great, that looks beautiful, and that's something that people enjoy using, that brings some joy to their bath experience. You know, it's small things like that I like.
I know it's also something you do. It's very nice, and you also now have taught some people how to make soap. You know,
That's right. Yeah.
I guess you enjoy sharing that with others.
I do. Yeah. A fellow actor who you probably know, Scott Treadway, came to me after I gave some soap out for an opening night gift, and he had found a bar of soap somewhere downtown that he loved. And he brought it to me. He said, "Smell this. This smells so great." And he's like, "This is handmade soap." I'm like, "I can teach you how to make that." So he came during my 9-month-old. My child at this point was 9 months old, and he came during Alden's nap time one day, and I taught him how to make a really simple soap. And he is so gracious and lovely. He'll say that I taught him everything he knows, which is completely wrong. He came for a very quick session. We made a batch of soap together, and he took notes and then went home. And I thought, well, he's not going to do anything with this. And he went home, and several months later, he sends me a picture of just like hundreds of bars of soap that he's made, and he just took what I gave him and ran with it. And he makes really wonderful soap as well. And you can find his soap at treadsoaps.com.
It's very sweet, because I wanted to interview him about the process. I said, nope, I interview you, you know, because you taught him everything you knew.
No, people should check his soaps out as well. They're beautiful. He makes a sort of a different type. He kind of found his recipe that he likes, and he makes a little bit of a different than I do. So we do sort of two different things, and his soap is fabulous. I've got a bar of it in my kitchen right now, actually.
Very nice. And you also make candles too?
I do, yeah. 100% soy, American-grown soy-based candles with cotton wicks. They're all made with fragrance oils that are clean fragrance oils, so they're phthalate free. So the things that you burn, you know, you might buy a cheap candle and burn it, and you're burning off paraffin wax, which is a petroleum product, which can put some bad stuff into your air, as well as the fragrance oils can contain some really rough chemicals that just get into your air and you breathe them. So the fragrance oils that I use are all free of anything on the Prop 65 list. So they're you can burn them knowing that the air that you're going to breathe is pretty clean, and they also smell really good.
And a final question for you, a tough one, not including your son, not including your husband. What's your favorite activity? Candle making, soap making, acting. Do you have a favorite?
Oh man, cooking.
Cook. And so that's going to be next. We'll go to NC State.
That's right. No, somebody told me once, and I'm sure it's saying that, you know, you should never make your hobby your career, because
Interesting.
Then it's your job, you know. So I love acting so much. It brings joy to my life. I love the connection that it brings me to people. I love soap making and candle making. It gives me a creative outlet that I can do by myself, that's quiet, that is interesting and scientific and detailed, and I love that. I love music. I'm a musical theater person. That's my degree, and so I love, you know, the aspect of art that brings to my life as well, and seeing that joy in my son. But I love cooking too. That's my hobby. It will never be something that I do to make money. It's it allows me all of those things, the community with people, and the joy and the artistic aspect and the creativity, for something that I can just make for myself to enjoy, or for my family to enjoy.
And again, Maria, if anyone wants to get information about, I guess, two aspects of your life, about your acting and performing, best bet to go where?
So I have a couple of websites. My website for my performing is mariaebuchanan.com. And you can find bits of me singing and acting and a resume and things like that, shots from previous shows, galleries of shows, and information on that. And then my soap and candles, you can find at Sudserysoapstudio.com.
Okay, and then what would be nice, as Maria disappears on us in just a second, you can also find out information about her acting, or you can see her acting in an upcoming play, which is going to be, we're going to talk about the second half of the of the show today. So anyway, thank you very much for being my guest this first half hour on the BLAINESWORLD show. And we'll look forward to seeing you, if not in person, via, I guess, not Zoom, well, Zoom or via...
It'll be via Zoom. Yeah, just like this. Lots of fun.
Upcoming play. Stay and listen to us, folks, and we'll hear about Maria's next show. Great seeing you, Maria. Thanks an awful lot.
Thanks so much for having me, Blaine.
Okay, as Maria disappears, we're going to try to find our next guest. And let's see, we'll bring Willie in, and there he is. Hey, Willie.
Hello.
Okay, and as Willie kind of gets set up here, I should just mention to our listeners that WPVM's mission is to foster community through programming that cultivates dialogue to inform and entertain. The station provides the medium for artists, businesses, community leaders, and nonprofits to share their voice on live radio. Listeners are invited to help support WPVM's efforts by making a tax-deductible contribution. You can do so by going to the website. Yeah.
I think I lost you. I can't hear you anymore. I think I'm going to have to leave and come back. Can I do that?
Yeah, you come and we'll find you in a second. I'll keep talking. So that'd be great.
I think that was an affirmative.
Okay, it is. I can hear you.
I pushed the wrong button. I'm going to be right back.
Okay, I can hear you great. But as mentioned, as Willie kind of finds his way back, is that listeners are welcome to support WPVM's efforts by making a tax-deductible contribution. They can do so by going to the website, WPVMFM.org, and looking at the donate option on the upper right-hand side. Our next guest, as he works his way in, is an amazing actor-performer, Willie, I think I got it right, Repoley. And he is he's the artistic director of the Intermediate Theater Project. And hopefully Willie will be coming in just a second, but I'll mention the fact that he co-founded the Immediate Theater Project in 2004 and created an annual WVL radio adaptation of It's Wonderful Life in 2009. He's performed in Asheville and around the country every year. And it's just something I'll kind of talk a little bit about as we have Willie work his way in. And I think he is in, if we get lucky. I just admitted him. Otherwise, you have to hear me. And I think, Willie, are you there? Okay, we're having a little technical difficulty, so we can work it out.
Can you hear? Checking. Am I back?
You are. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, well, this is really good, Willie, because otherwise I was going to have to talk about you for an hour or half an hour, and I probably could, but it's much easier to talk to you about it. And I just gave you the background, Willie, that you were, I think I first met you through Immediate Theater Project.
I think so, yeah.
And let me ask you a question before we talk about that. So I know you, I guess, as an actor, writer, screenwriter, director. I know you're in a bunch of capacities. When did you first get into theater?
Well, I mean, I used to play dress up with my sister when we were kids, and we would act out scenes from The Wizard of Oz, That always just was so fun to me. That in middle school, when my friend, how peer pressure is in middle school, well, my friends tried out for the school play. So what was I going to do? Tried out for the school play. And I just really enjoyed it and have always sort of stuck with it. And whatever else I've tried, whatever else I've done, I've sort of always come back to theater as somewhere that feels like home until suddenly it was my job.
You remember the first show you were ever in?
Well, the first, in third grade operetta, where I played an orangutan who had a donkey's bray and had to get that worked out. There was that. But the first show, it was a school. I was in the ensemble of Bye Bye Birdie in 7th grade, met some great people. My first speaking role was the Tin Man in The Wizard of Oz in ninth grade.
Because why don't you keep those in mind, Willie? I have this great idea I mentioned to Maria on the first half of the show today, but I have an idea for either NC Stage or immediate theater project, but I want everybody to do their first role, you know, and to tape it, you know, like, for example, your first role. Do they have a record of it?
I'm sure there is. In fact, I think my mom just uncovered a tape of The Wizard of Oz recently. I'll have to look for that.
But it's probably a VHS tape or whatever it was.
Definitely VHS.
But wouldn't it be cool if everybody got on stage and did their first, they didn't have to do the whole thing, they just maybe the first 5 minutes.
So we recreate, we don't have to show the VHS, we'll recreate that performance.
No, but wouldn't that be fun, you know?
Right.
And you pass it on to your children and they could see, you know, Dad when he was his first role. So keep that in mind. You put stuff together, but everybody I've talked to says they'd love to do that. And, you know, for get everybody, I think it'd be a success. So keep that in mind. So you started acting then as a kid. When did you decide you want to be a professional actor?
Well, when I graduated college and had a degree in theater and didn't know what that meant. I knew I didn't feel like I wanted to move to New York and do the sort of the thing where you do that and try and make it as an actor. The idea of just going to all the auditions and not getting the jobs and that whole thing that people do that's really valuable, I just didn't want to do that. And so I worked at some theater summer camps, and then it was really when Hans Meyer, who I'd gone to college with and who we would later found a theater company together, he said, I'm doing this outdoor Shakespeare outside of Atlanta. Will you come in and be in The Merchant of Venice? And I said, yeah, that sounds great. And so that was one of the first things that I sort of did out of the college setting that felt like this could really turn into something. And shortly thereafter, I moved to Asheville and luckily got connected with Charlie and Angie Flynn McKeever right when they were opening up North Carolina Stage Company. I auditioned for their first show and got cast. And so I was in a really unusual position in that in one of my first plays, I was already working for a company that had professional standards and was, paying us real money and was connected to, it was hiring union actors. And so that really shaped the next trajectory of my life, where I wanted to be a part of that and did.
And then somewhere along the line too, which always impressed me about you, you decided to start your own theater company. Is that correct?
Yes, although I have to say it wasn't exactly a plan. Hans, who I mentioned earlier, said, I have this idea. I've been working on this idea of the glass menagerie where we strip everything down. See, we always call this American classic, but often when you see it, you kind of feel, well, it's kind of stuffy and boring. I get that it was like poetic and cool and stuff, I guess, but didn't really connect with it. We thought, well, what if we get rid of all the stuffiness? We get rid of all the furniture, even. We just have 4 pools of light on a white stage, and we have just Tennessee Williams's words and actors to speak them. What would that be like? And so we played around with that, and NC Stage let us take over their space for a few weeks, and we were their first Catalyst show when they had other groups in to use their space. And we had such a great experience working together and working on that show, having some success with that, and just realizing sort of the joy of being able to choose the material that you work on. As an actor, of course, you're always just taking whatever job comes to you. And sometimes they're fabulous, and sometimes they're just money. And to be able to say, now I can be in a position where I can think about what stories seem important on a personal level, on a local level, a national level, a global level, like what stories need to be told right now for whatever reasons, because this is a skill that these actors want to learn and work on together, or because this is a story that the community could really benefit from in this way. And suddenly we realized that we could be in charge of choosing those stories. And so we decided to we had created an immediate theater project just to do this one show of Glass Menagerie. And when we decided to do an Edward Albee show later that year. And then we started doing at least one show every year since then. And by 2008, we were producing enough that NC Stage asked us to come on board as their partner company in residence. And that sort of solidified our relationship with them to our mutual benefit. And it's been a great ride.
So that's where I think I've seen you in a bunch of shows, and we'll talk about some of the shows you've been in. You've done, so most of the stuff I've seen you through have been immediate theater projects.
Well, I would say it's probably split. You've probably seen ones that were produced by Immediate Theater Project, others that I was just hired by NC Stage or by Flat Rock Playhouse. I'd say probably an about equal number of the ones that you've seen.
We'll talk about something else I've seen you in, which always knocks my socks off. I've seen you in at least several one-man shows, you know.
Yeah.
And talk about that in terms of, as an actor, do you have a preference being in a one-man show or a show with other actors?
Well, it had never occurred to me to try and be in a one-person show. That just seemed bonkers. I'd seen some really cool ones. And of course, we all have some that maybe didn't work so well. But when Hans and I were looking at a show and we read about this play in Iliad that Dennis O'Hare and Lisa Peterson had written, and it was performed by Dennis O'Hare and Stephen Spinella at New York Theater Workshop in 2013, maybe. And it had been their response, the playwrights' response to the war in Iraq, and how can we reckon with that as modern theater tellers, and how they went back to this ancient story of war and rage to try and make some sense of what was going on in the world at that time. And I read the reviews of that, and it just really interested me. So I got the script and just said, we've got to produce this show. And we committed to producing it, but I didn't have an actor in mind. And as we got closer to time, and I knew I wanted Hans to direct, and he started asking, well, would you be up for this? Do you want to take this on? And it was definitely intimidating, the idea of it, and then the practice of it, very much so. But it was also really exciting and liberating. And because Hans and I worked together for so long, we had a lot of trust in each other, and in the process, we could go back on the mutual training that we had both had at Guilford College in Greensboro, and teachers that we had both had, and voice techniques that we had started working on together, and then had gone on and studied in different ways at other times. And so we found that enabled us to work together well, and enabled me to have the confidence I think I needed to attempt to pull it off, and to know that I could mess up as often as I needed to in rehearsal with Hans.
Well, nice thing I would imagine, Willie, too, I always think about it in terms of one-man play, is that even if you mess up, other than Hans, nobody else is going to know.
Right. Well, I mean, that's what rehearsal is for a one-person player, any show. You want to mess up all the time so that you find out what is right. Oh, that wasn't right.
Yeah, but even if you get the dialogue wrong, I don't know it,
Right?
So Hans would know it, but
He would know it, and he would say, please get back on track, please get back on track. The only other solo show I did was the one that I wrote with Ron Bashford, and we worked on it together, which was Burden. We did a few years later. There was one night, I will admit, where I started a scene, and I walked into the scene very confident, and I said, oh, look, CM, the stage manager, got the lighting wrong for the scene. That's all right. I'm sure CM will fix it shortly. And about 5 seconds in, I started speaking, and I said, oh, no, nope, the lighting is right. I'm in the wrong scene. I skipped about half an hour of the play. How do I go back?
I didn't see it that night, I don't think. I would remember that.
Maybe you did.
I thought it was part of the play.
Well, CM saved me, Before I knew it, the lighting had shifted into this scene, and I had thought through, I know exactly what information I missed, so I know how I can go back and pick it up. And I'm going to trust that CM in the booth went through the same process and also knows exactly where I'm going to go back to. And the next scene transition, we both went back to the same part of the script that we'd missed, went on. When we got to the scene we already did, we just skipped it. It's like, this is why we rehearse. Even when something like this goes wrong, there's enough trust and openness in the room that we can get through it. I mean, I once went up on a scene that I was working with, was this great vocal coach, Patsy Rodenberg. She's trained everybody, you know, from Laurence Olivier to Theresa May. Like, and I was working on a scene in her class, and I got in the middle of this monologue and just had no idea what the next line was. And I just, because of what we've been doing in class, I knew to breathe. And breath is literally inspiration. And the words found me, or I don't know what happened. And I went on, and afterwards, what we talked about wasn't how Willie messed up and forgot his lines, which he shouldn't have done. It was how Willie knew to breathe. It's like, oh, thank goodness, that actually worked. Because the word inspire, that means to breathe in.
Well, you know, it's funny you say that because it ties into another question I have, not only you, but other directors. And that has to do with the question that I know you as an actor, I know you as running a theater company, but I also know you as a director, you know. Mm-hmm. And do you have a preference as to doing those many different things, and a screenwriter as well? Do you have a preference as to, say, acting or directing?
It would be so hard to choose one or the other, because I feel like together they create a much more interesting puzzle than any one piece on its own could do. Like, I don't want to start stretching myself so thin that I'm not actually good at anything anymore. You know what I mean? I'm already close to that already. It feels like most of the time I'm just flying by the seat of my pants and trusting the process is going to work, and it usually does. But they complement each other in a way. There are things you get from watching a play from the outside and being able to help shape it and help guide choices that are made, and getting to watch other people's choices coming to life and creating some sort of alchemy that you don't notice as much from the inside of the play. So I love that part of directing, but I certainly wouldn't want to give up acting if I didn't absolutely have to. Just,
your answer is an interesting one, in that most directors I speak to who have been actors, I'd say 9 out of 10 say they prefer directing. You know, so you're kind of cool. You're kind of the first one who said, I love your answer, kind of like you like both, you know, and you'll do both. And it perfect segue also into what our next one to talk about is something really exciting. And it's a play right now as we speak. I guess when people see the show, it'll be already underway. But talk about what you're doing right now at NC Stage.
Sure. So Immediate Theater Project is producing a radio version of It's a Wonderful Life since 2006. And we adapted our own version in 2009, which involves the story of a radio station in financial distress who has one winter night in the mid-40s is forced to produce It's a Wonderful Life with only 4 actors, four people, they're not even all actors, because of situation beyond their control. There's a storm, nobody can get to the studio. And so the story is both the story of It's a Wonderful Life and, at the same time, layered in the story of this radio station trying against the odds to stay afloat. And we get to watch both these stories at the same time. Well, I didn't want to skip a year if we didn't have to, but we can't be in a theater. We can't gather together in the same way this year. But I mean, looking at the political climate and the polarization, I thought, boy, if there's ever a year for the story of It's a Wonderful Life, this is it. Is there a way to salvage it? Is there a way that we can do on Zoom something that feels like it had to be done that way? I don't want to just take the Wonderful Life story and perform it with 4 people on Zoom because it feels like it's missing something. I don't want to take our radio story and do it on Zoom, because then I just feel like, well, am I wearing my 1940s radio costume, but we know that it's actually through the computer? I couldn't wrap my head around it. So we finally said, well, let's tell the story of actors in the middle of this pandemic who need to perform It's a Wonderful Life and have to figure out a way to do that in the moment over Zoom. And we can take advantage of the real life situation and the actors' real backstories. All the actors that we hired are actors who have worked on this radio show at various points over the last decade. And so we can use our own stories to tell this new story of how we create It's a Wonderful Life over Zoom. And that finally felt like something that was exciting, and it gave me a reason to watch it in this way. So that's been pretty cool to discover.
And that's, for you, probably quite a transformation, because again, I've seen this show, the radio version of It's a Wonderful Life, I don't know, maybe 5-6 times. I love it every time I see it, but it has a distinct flavor to it. You know, the radio show, and everybody's coming into the radio show. And so to change it around must have been a good bit of work on your part, wasn't it?
It was definitely challenging in a lot of ways. I mean, first, just was the concept going to work at all? We kind of did a stress test for a week to say, do we think this is really going to work, before we committed to actually producing it? And that seemed like it went well. But I have to say, even once we came up with the framing device, when we got in the room, or the 4 rooms, actually, 6 rooms, including the director and stage manager, and we're all in different places, by the way. We have 3 people in or near Asheville, the director's in Atlanta, now we have somebody in Minneapolis, we have Springfield, Illinois, and we're all able to come together in this way. And when we did, we realized we still didn't quite have it right. And so we played around with it. All the actors were able to make suggestions, input on how we could sort of fix the things that weren't working yet. And we finalized the script probably 4 days before opening night. Not because we wanted to make it so challenging for ourselves, but because we were committed to finding the best way to tell the story in this new way. You know, this is everybody's first pandemic, right? This is our starter pandemic. Hopefully our last too.
Last, yeah. Well,
but we're all just figuring this out in the moment, and we wanted to honor that, and to give it the time that it took to get it right.
Well, it's so exciting about it, Willie. Something you told me off the air. I was asking about, well, I want to see this. How do I sign up? And you were telling me how to sign up. And I said, well, hey, that's great. I'll just sign up and watch an hour here, you know, an hour there, you know, and over 2 or 3 nights, I'll see the whole thing. But you told me, no, I can't do that. Tell me why not.
Yeah, we decided that, you know, I haven't watched a lot of Zoom theater during the pandemic. I'm busy with other things, and maybe it makes me sad too. But what I have watched has, for the most part, been pretty interesting in different ways. And there's a lot of things that I didn't get to watch that I really regret not being able to watch. But some of the most successful things that I saw were ones that somehow recreated the live experience. And they did it in different ways. But one of my favorite ones was filmed in an empty theater and performed live. I had to go to the website and buy a ticket, just like I would for any other play. Now, it happened to be a theater in London that I couldn't ordinarily walk up and buy a ticket for. But I could go, and just because I had to watch it at 8 a.m. because it was a matinee in London,
Right.
It actually made me feel more like I was involved in the process. And that's what we wanted to create here. We said, we're going to, we talked to the union about what concessions have been made for the pandemic, and they said, sure, you can record the show once and play it back for these many performances. We said, no. Can we do it just like we would at the theater? The actors are going to show up every night for their half-hour call.
I'm losing you a little bit. Now, I've lost you all of a sudden.
Am I back?
Yeah, now you're back.
No.
Stay there.
Okay,
You're
good.
back. Okay, good.
We're going to perform the show just as we normally would in the theater. We're going to do it live every night. Our curtain's going to be at 7:30, and we're 2 o'clock on Sundays. And if you are there in space with us, not physically in the same room, but we will be occupying the same space in some sense as the audience. And that seemed really important to us, and for this particular story, and for it to work in this platform. We knew that we wanted to be with the people who were watching as much as we can.
Did you feel that same way when you watched that London show? Is that how you felt?
Yeah, that's the first time that I thought this is possible. I had seen, a different London show that had been recorded and was fun. I was like, oh, I wished I'd seen the show when it was out, and I couldn't. And so it's fun to see it now. But I got to be honest, I had to stop watching to eat dinner or something. I never went back and finished it.
Because they say
it just wasn't the same.
you did a good job getting me excited about this, and you really have. Because
Right.
as you said, I've seen a couple of different shows, during the pandemic. I saw Hamilton, I mentioned. There was a
Yeah.
recorded version of it. It wasn't the same. Now here, the drawback is I'm actually going to have to get somewhat dressed. Remember when people, before your time, people actually used to wear suits and ties to
Right.
theater.
Right.
But I'm going to have to kind of get dressed in my seat, and the only good thing, I guess, this time I can unwrap candy. It won't bother you.
That's right. We won't know. To be perfectly honest, we won't see you either.
Okay.
You and the other audience members may be able to see themselves, see each other over the Zoom platform.
Oh, Willie?
At least before the pre-show, because it's just like a regular Zoom call. You can set it up how you want. You can set it up so that we're the main feature, and that's all you can see. Or you can set it up that you can see everybody who's watching at the same time.
Right.
Totally up to you. Now, if you do that, we're going to be a tiny, tiny little box.
Right. No, but I'm glad you won me on that. So, I better be careful. People can see me.
That's right.
But that's really exciting, because even as you're describing it, gives me the feel, and I haven't seen that other theater stuff, that I'm going to be part of an actual production.
Yeah, that's really what I hope, that it does feel like we are part of something together that's happening in real time.
Now, if people want to see this, talk about the run of the show, and then we'll talk about getting tickets, all that good stuff. But when's it going? It opens officially what date? Yeah,
so the 3-week run is officially December 3rd through December 20th. We run 7:30 p.m. on Wednesdays, Thursdays. Sorry, not Wednesdays. We only have Thursday, Friday, and Saturdays at 7:30, and Sundays at 2 p.m. You can get information about the company, Immediate Theater Project, at immediatetheaterproject.org, and you can get info on It's a Wonderful Life there too. And we have a link there to buy tickets. The tickets are being sold through North Carolina Stage Company, so you can also go to ncstage.org and go directly to that ticket link, and they link back to us too, so you can find both companies either way.
When you're seeing it, so they're seeing, what are you calling it? It's not a Wonderful Life, the radio version. Are you calling it just It's a Wonderful Life, or what are you calling it?
This year we're basically calling it It's a Wonderful Life 2020. To keep it all straight in our minds.
Okay, and talk a little bit, Willie. I know you and Maria are, my guess, the first half hour on the show are both in the show. Who else is in the show?
So it's Maria and I know she mentioned that we've done the show before a couple of times, which was really part of the goal. Find people who have worked together, who can pull this off in a limited amount of time and still discover fun new stuff. So it's Maria and I, as well as Tony Larkin, who was on the touring cast of the show 2 years, 2013 and 2014. And Lauren Creel, who has been in the touring cast or behind the scenes on the tour. It's been, I think, 7, maybe 8 times at this point. So I'm really excited to finally get the chance to work with them. I think I've directed all 3 of them before, but I've never got to work with them as an actor. And it's just a delight.
And who's directing it?
And Hans Meyer is directing, who directed me in an Iliad and started Immediate Theater Project back in 2014 with that production of Glass Menagerie I mentioned before.
And so when I see it, that's what I'm really curious now about seeing it. The guts of the story are sort of the same, but it'll still be different though, because again, it's not 1940s anymore. It's 2020. Right.
It's going to still be 4 actors and live sound effects. We all have live sound effects, but this year, we don't have all this pre-prepared stuff. We have to pull stuff from our refrigerators or our garages in order to find the sound effects that we need this year. So people who are familiar with the show from years past will definitely find a lot to recognize, and I hope will enjoy the way that it's changed. And I think people who have never seen that version will still not only get the full It's a Wonderful Life story, of course, but also I think will be delighted by the story of 4 real people in the world today trying to create something out of almost nothing. And it feels like a good time of a story of succeeding against the odds.
All right, now you've convinced me, so you at least have 1 ticket sale. I'll be there, really looking forward to it. I'd like to thank you for being my guest this second half hour on the BLAINESWORLD show. Also, Maria Buchanan for being my guest the first half hour. Amy Prisnach, my producer. I also look forward to having you join me next Wednesday at 9 a.m. here on WPBM in Asheville, North Carolina. You can also watch us on WPBM's Facebook page. I look forward to really seeing you in real theater, hopefully in the near future.
I
Thanks,
hope
buddy.
so. Thank you, Blaine.
Great.